take you here now. Prasa trains are expected to resume operations on Wednesday. That's after nearly 3 months of lockdown. We understand this will be at 15% capacity. We get you more information from Prasa spokesperson Makosini Mgigwa, who joins us via Skype. Mr. Mgigwa, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. If you can give us an update in terms of your state of readiness.
Well, tomorrow the Minister of Transport, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, is going to address the media on this matter. But I think the most important thing for us to say is that Prasa will, from the 1st of July, resume limited services. And I think the message that we would want to put out to commuters out there is that people should consider other modes of transportation and not just trains, because we are going to be working on a very limited capacity, and those lines are going to be announced, of course, by the minister tomorrow. But I think it's important for us to raise that people who usually use taxis must continue to use taxis. Those who use buses must continue to use buses, because as a result of the lockdown regulations which come with social distancing restrictions, it just simply means that the trains won't be able to take as many people as they usually take under normal circumstances.
When you talk about limited services, please expand for us. Could this also be as a result of cable theft? We understand that there's been extensive damage to infrastructure.
Look, last week, the administrator of Prasa, Mr. Bongisizwe Mpondo, instituted an investigation internally in Prasa to see who inside Prasa is working against Prasa, working with those who are damaging Prasa. We have noticed that every time we have meetings internally at Prasa to talk about which lines are going to be reopened, and those lines come under attack, they see unprecedented vandalism and theft. And we also have realized that when there is a communication, like there's a submission that was made to the administrator, that was seen by very few people who are very senior within the organization. And that communication found its way into one of the service providers. And the purpose of leaking that information was so that the procurement, the emergency procurement of getting security guards that are going to protect the network, that does not take place. So there is definitely collusion between some of the people who are vandalizing the infrastructure, some of the security companies whose contracts were terminated because they were found to have been irregular, and indeed, unfortunately, some people within Prasa. So that investigation is taking place. And I'm saying this to confirm to you that, yes, we have seen unprecedented levels of vandalism and theft against our infrastructure. And that is making it very difficult for us to roll out the services that we should be rolling out. But that said, the minister will tomorrow announce which lines are going and corridors are going to be operating as of the 1st of July.
So, is it my understanding, or is it a correct assessment or understanding that you are unable this afternoon to perhaps give us an idea as to which lines will be open?
Look, that will be subject of the press briefing or the press conference that is going to take place tomorrow. That is going to give a clear picture as to which lines where are going to be resuming. You must remember that we have operations in terms of metro rails. We have operations in Gauteng. We have operations in Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. So there is going to be a briefing that's going to take place, which is going to say exactly which lines and which corridors are going to be opened. But it's important for me to stress that it is going to be a limited service because of the vandalism of the infrastructure that you have spoken about, but because trains are going to be taking a limited number of people. For instance, there is going to be a space between two people who are sitting, and there is going to be a space also that's going to be given for people who are standing. So that just simply means that the trains, as they usually operate, in the capacity at which they usually operate, they are not going to be operating that way this time around. So it's important for us to stress the point that only people who have to travel must use the train, and those who usually use other modes of transport must continue considering those modes of transport, because here it's going to be a very limited service, and we wouldn't want the situation, the system, to be overwhelmed by many people coming over. But also it's important that everyone who has any intention of using the train must use the mask. If you don't have the mask, we're not going to be allowing you to to board the trains, and also there are going to be facilities that are going to be provided for people to be able to wash their hands and to sanitize their hands. So it's important for us to stress that social distancing and all the regulations that come with level 3 lockdown are going to be applicable.
Mr. Mkitwa, just a final word. So when you say that people must consider other modes of transport, taxi fares went up. What do you say to somebody that says, well, I simply can't afford that, and for me, a train is a much more reasonable mode of transport to get to work?
Look, I think it's important for all of us to understand that, the situation is not a creation of anybody deliberately. We are all reacting to a situation that is unprecedented, that we've never had to deal with before. And the fact that taxis may be raising their fares or doing whatever they are doing, it just simply means that it doesn't mean that, Prasa and the passenger rail system is going to be able to accommodate those people who may be wanting to come this side. We are going to do our best to make sure that we provide services to people, but the most important thing is safety, that we do it safely so that our trains do not become the venue where transmission takes place. But we will try to assist as much as we can, but what we are not going to do is to overload our trains or allow people not to observe social distancing, because that would be a recipe for disaster. It just simply means that people will be going to trains to catch the disease, and we don't want that. We want our passengers and our employees to be safe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makhosini Mkitwa speaks for Prasa.